Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my parents' basement, your parents' basement, our parents' basement, and today we're talking about The Naked Gun. The Naked Gun, Files from the Police Squad, was directed by David Zucker and created by the Zaz team of David Zucker, Jim Abrahams, and Jerry Zucker. The film was produced by Robert K. Weiss, and it stars Leslie Nielsen, Priscilla Presley, Richard Maltaban, George Kennedy, and O.J. Simpson. And the film follows Lieutenant Frank Drebin, who will reach to any length and do whatever it takes to uncover a murderous plot to assassinate the Queen of England visiting LA. Whether you're familiar with the Zaz team or not, you're definitely familiar with the filmography that they're behind. Airplane, Top Secret, and obviously the Naked Gun trilogy. They had nothing to do with Airplane 2. And with a new Naked Gun film coming out this Friday, I thought it'd be all the better to go back and revisit the original and see just what made this film a classic to begin with. The Naked Gun series has always been one of my favorite comedy series, and Leslie Nielsen I think is one of the best comedic actors of all time. For those who don't know his story, he was a dramatic actor in the 60s. Had some minor roles here and there throughout into the late 70s, but it was really his background as a dramatic actor, applying that to this comedic part where he has all these absurd lines, and he's doing the most crazy things in the serious situations, but he's saying it with such a dryness and such a seriousness to it that it's absolutely hilarious. And it's interesting that he found his calling much later in his career as this comedic actor when he had been a dramatic one. But he's a very funny person. He's done a lot more comedy films outside of the Zaz films. He's collaborated with Mel Brooks a couple times, known for parodies, definitely in the 90s. I think there's a couple that you guys are probably familiar with. He did some of those scary movies in the 2000s. He did, I forget what it's called, but it's basically a fugitive ripoff. I forget if it's called like The Wanted Man or whatever it is. But Leslie Nielsen is a comedic genius, and he is Lieutenant Frank Drebin, returning to the role that he played in the briefly run series Files from the Police Squad. Only went 6 episodes. Following Airplane, the Zaz team wanted to do another parody, and they were offered a TV show despite wanting to do a movie. They eventually came around to the Police Squad, Files from the Police Squad, which ran 6 episodes before. I believe it was canceled after 4, and then they aired the last 2 in the summer. But it was basically agreed by the Paramount head that it was simply because the TV audience did not have the time or the awareness to watch so closely to get so much of the humor. And Leslie Nielsen thought, as well as the rest of the team and the head of Paramount, that it was better suited as a movie, and therefore it was made one to be seen on the big screen. And it became one of the most popular film franchises of all time, and this is the film that kicked it off. There's not much to say about Naked Gun, Files from the Police Squad that hasn't already been said. Most people know that it is a classic comedy film, a classic parody film, and I think it's its style of comedy that makes it so timeless. I think The Naked Gun's comedic style is what makes it such a timeless film that people constantly return to 30, 40 years afterward. Its use of slapstick comedy mixed with puns and visual gags really make it so that anyone of any age during any time can come back and revisit this. There are very few cultural references. In fact, I think there's really only one, and it's when Leslie Nielsen's character and Priscilla Presley's character are leaving the movie theater, and they're laughing, having a good time, and the movie that they were watching was Platoon. That's really the only cultural reference that is in this film. Otherwise, it's very much so timeless comedy based on puns or setting up a joke and then either not paying it off or paying it off in a way unexpected, misdirection gags, just a lot of great physical, visual comedy, and just kind of building up the ante, setting stakes, and just absurdity, the utmost absurdity. This movie today still, I mean, I've seen this movie many times. It's been a while since this last rewatch that I've had. Can't remember the last time before then that I rewatched it, but I was laughing quite often at just some of the funniest stuff that some of it I did remember and it still made me laugh, and some of it I had forgotten in the time since my last viewing. And I mean, it's just a hilarious movie on every level. And it's that really sets this movie apart, I think, from other comedies that try too hard or break the rules of the world they've created. Drebin is a bumbling idiot, but so is everybody else to a certain degree. And the laws of that we experience in our reality are not applied here, and it works because that's part of the humor. I think another thing that's surprising, at least for the first one, is that it doesn't really play into many genre tropes for police procedurals. There are some moments like the bribing for information or the assassination attempt, the various assassination attempts throughout some of the police work stuff. But for the most part, it doesn't really play into the genre tropes. The comedy is from the characters and from their interactions and from the absurdity in the world that they live in. This is a nice touch because it doesn't require the audience member to have any previous knowledge of police procedurals or be familiar with them, because the film itself does not get bogged down in poking fun at all of that. It much more is interested in making you laugh from genuine situations created and playing into your expectations. Like I also mentioned before, the classic Zaz style of comedy, everyone plays it straight in this heightened reality, and again, that plays a lot towards the comedic value of the film. Now, for a film like this, it runs in at 85 minutes. The story and the plot, the character arcs are somewhat weak, but you're not here to watch an actual police procedural. It doesn't need an airtight story. This is more so a vehicle for comedy to take place. And so there's a general plot. We understand what's happening. Well, certain motives from characters are never really explained. Justice never comes up to those people in the boat that O.J. Simpson stumbles upon. But the movie doesn't. That's not this type of movie. You know, that's just a vehicle to drive the plot while the characters travel through this world and create situations of comedy for us as an audience to enjoy. It doesn't need a plot that you could separate the comedy from and it could stand on its own. That's not this type of movie. And the plot, the general plot was created, again, as a backdrop for Leslie Nielsen to chew up the scenery and to make comedy gold. One critique that I would hold against the movie is I think its final act is a little weak. I think for a movie that was so fresh and that does such inventive jokes and is constantly progressing into a new style or a new scene and offering new things, the third act kind of repeats the same joke a couple of times over. And while it is charming at first, I think it does carry on a little bit too long. And it still works. It feels satisfying in its own way. But I think with the rest of the movie, kind of, you never really knew where the movie was going to go, what joke was around the corner. And often those were the best ones, were just out of the blue. Drebin is taking off his gun holster and he takes off the straps, and then he turns around and it's a bra strap that he undoes. Like, just some of the stuff that you're like, how did they come up with that? It's just so genius, but also like so obvious and easy. Like, I felt like it was like the most simple joke that anyone could have come up with, but at the same time it feels like it was absolutely incredible and you would have never thought of it in a million years. And then the ending with the baseball game set piece, interesting. I like it. Some good gigs within it, but overall I think the singing of the national anthem in disguise and then immediately going to the disguise of the umpire makes you go like, well, what? You're just doing the same gag again, and the first one doesn't really feel that necessary now that he's like, why wasn't he just an umpire the whole time? And then the umpire strike gag goes on a little bit to get us to the seventh inning, and I guess this assassination attempt has to happen at the seventh inning. And it just kind of feels like it got bogged down a little bit in that scene. I would have liked for something a little bit quicker and faster paced. And if I remember correctly, I think the second one at least does a little bit of a faster paced finale, a little bit more action and comedy centered instead of kind of this long drawn out bit. So that's probably my only real critique of the film. That final act, I feel like, was a little bit overthought and didn't feel as spontaneous as everything else. It felt very much so like it weighed down. We got weighed down in that moment, and it kind of drug on too long. David Zucker is a very competent comedy director. Airplane and Top Secret, two Zaz films that he directed that I enjoy very much so. Understands the genre. It does what needs to be done. I mean, it looks very nice, and it's well shot, and framing is often... the framing of scenes doesn't necessarily always play into the joke, but when it does, it's well positioned, and it's nice to look at, you know. It's filled with colors, and it actually looks like a Hollywood movie. It's well directed, it's well written, the cast know what they're doing, and they do it well, whether they're playing straight or they're playing to the comedic edge. Everyone hits their mark, does their stuff, and it's very funny. And it's just, within the first 5 minutes, I was laughing very hard. I love that opening scene with the sneaking onto the boat and then getting caught in the wet paint and the hot iron, or the hot stove, and the windowsill, the bear trap, the cake, just building up the ante in the most comedic way possible. And the laughs don't stop there. If you've never seen the original Naked Gun, now's the perfect time to check it out, especially with Liam Neeson's new rebooted rendition coming, adding to the franchise, and I'm sure the most Naked Gun way possible. But it's hard to beat the original, and I don't think any film will be able to. That being said, I'm going to give The Naked Gun Files from the Police Squad Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of The Naked Gun Files from the Police Squad from 1988, and if you're looking forward to Liam Neeson's rebooted film that comes out, I believe, this Friday. What's your favorite gag? What do you think of the sequels? And is there another Leslie Nielsen comedy film that you prefer? But outside of that, that's all I've got for you guys in this movie review. Thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do what you gotta do. Make sure that you're here next time so I can see you in my parents' basement, your parents' basement, our parents' basement.